Welcome to CEO Growth Team. This is Edward Earl. I'm here with Jeff Morrow, CEO of A Greener Tomorrow. And I brought Jeff here to talk about some of the successes that he's having with our free press program. Because not only did we get attached to you because of the free press program, but you've taken that and started to use that in your own marketplace as a way to generate contact with your marketplace. Can you give us an idea of how that's going?
Yeah, we went to a show recently in the office supply industry, and there were about 500 dealers there. And one of the things that we did was to get people to come by and hear a little bit more about Greener Tomorrow. Is we talked to them about the fact that we could do some video and we could do some press releases for them. Many of them were very, very skeptical. They didn't think that it was kind of the way to go. They didn't think that they were very good in front of the camera. I got to tell you, though, we ended up doing about 11 different videos and press releases, and the feedback has been phenomenal. They were absolutely blown away with what they could do, and all of a sudden it started opening their minds to different directions that they could go in.
Why do you think they were skeptical at first?
Well, because the traditional person thinks that if you get in front of a camera, it's going to look very trite. It's going to look bad. It's not going to be a good look at all. And they don't have the expertise behind knowing how to do it so that it makes sense. It just looks dumb. But when they sat down, and you got Rutherford with us, that was taking and doing some editing, and they saw the editing process and how all of a sudden what was in their mind wasn't what was on video, it was phenomenal.
I think sometimes when people look at the idea of being on camera and knowing that it's actually going to be produced, kind of like what we're doing here in CGT Studios in Los Angeles, they think, I'm not an actor.
Correct.
You know, and I think a lot of people have some certain reservations about even just standard things like pictures and photos of themselves. So that's true, but when they can see that actually happening right in front, they realize that they really do look fantastic. I mean, they're CEOs of organizations, and they have a certain amount of authority and posture that emanates and comes out on camera if you can capture it right.
It was absolutely amazing. Two I can think of. One was a gal from the Midwest. She didn't really want to get up there, but something switched when we got into a conversation. They forgot the camera was there. We just had a conversation like you and I are having right now. The other guy was someone that was very, very nervous on camera, and even as we talked, he was nervous, but because of the editing process, we were able to take a lot of the different pieces, piece them together, and he looked incredible on video. It was really cool.
So now in your organization, what do you guys do specifically? I know you do a lot of training from sales to branding, marketing. We're kind of peers in this industry as a whole, and your marketplace consists of these types of organizations, office supply type companies, the independents. And so what's a typical methodology for you or an organization like yours to generate a lead typically?
Typically, what you do is you make cold calls. You get on the phone and say, hey, how are things going in your sales organization? I know you've probably had to cut back. I've got a little bit different direction here. I'll call them up. I'll send them to my website, which incidentally is not very good. I got to be honest with you. I've taken one of the templates and I'm on the web, but that's about it, as I'm on the web. And then we generally, in our industry, we would follow it up with emails. And I would bet you that less than half of those emails get read.
So if you call 100 prospects, how many of those guys are you actually going to be able to have a conversation with?
Probably 10 or less.
And out of that 10, how many of those guys will you actually get in to see and maybe give some kind of a presentation that might lead to a sale?
2 to 3, and I probably would get 1 out of 100.
Out of 100?
Out of the traditional methodology.
And then the timeline that would take?
Well, especially in these tough economic times, the timeline is anywhere from 3 months to a year and a half.
A year and a half to get to the game.
Just to get to decision makers in very many cases, because there are an awful lot of people that are the gatekeepers that are gathering the information, and they'll say, we'll get to you.
And the expense of that, typical cost to generate a lead or an opportunity?
Oh golly, it's all over the place. And our industry, you know, the cost to generate the lead isn't difficult in hard dollars. It's trying to calculate what my time is.
It's the time expenditure.
It's the time expenditure, and you know, there I'm looking at $200-300 an hour. Really, if I take it to the end of the day, and that's not as good as some of them get. Some of the really, really good consultants.
Your lead cost in calculating professional approaches is literally in the thousands of dollars to get an opportunity.
I think you're absolutely right.
And so you look at that, and then at the same time, you're always selling, you're always influencing, you're always persuading, which is some of the things that we talked about in my concepts of telling people that there's no such thing as sales, that it doesn't exist. We think that it exists, so we follow all these sales methodologies, but in reality, it doesn't exist.
Correct.
There needs to be more creative strategy involved in accomplishing what your objectives are and in communicating with the marketplace, attracting new prospects. And if you look at what you're doing now, what's the difference in using our free press approach? What's the difference now when you're communicating with the marketplace, generating a lead, the relationship you're seeing with those people right out of the gate, the cost, the time, the ease, so on and so forth?
A number of years ago, with the old sales methodology, people would have to believe me. And I would go out there and it would be a trust issue. My dad used to say, you go out and you keep calling on them and calling on them and calling on them until finally they break down and finally they're going to come around. That doesn't work anymore. The new methodology that you're talking about now is all about telling them something that they find credible right off the bat. And we all know that a press release is very, very credible. We also know that a CEO talking into a camera is very credible. So when you combine those two things together with the other methodologies that you've been putting together, nobody is telling me no. I don't get it. It would be like if I was talking to 100 people, I would get 100 responses.
Right.
So it's almost 100%. It's not back to the 2 and 3%.
Which is interesting because it makes it almost unbelievable to think that that type of result is actually possible.
Correct.
It's not something that people would believe. They don't believe it, but it actually is the case.
Well, it is the case, and and I went with the people that we got into our booth. I'm 11 for 11 at that show, and I haven't even taken it and extended it out further than that.
And so the cost per lead is essentially a little bit of time on being there with the camera, but you were already there, so that cost is already sunk. Because you were at a trade show.
Correct.
So you're not incurring any more cost.
Correct.
Explain the relationship of, well, let me go back. The time, there is no time. It's instantaneous.
It was instantaneous, and the very cool part is there was no cost to the dealers.
Right.
Which, when they hear press release, when they hear video, they're thinking, all right, how much is this going to cost me? What's the angle?
Right.
What's the angle? And what they're finding here is that there is no angle. It is what it is.
Right.
We're doing a press release for you. You can see the press release. You have the video 2 or 3 weeks later. You view it. It's yours 100%.
To go and use and distribute.
However they want to use
your
it. Your
promotional collateral, your press, your organization, off your website, YouTube, social media, the whole entire deal. It really is based off the concept and the foundation of patriarchal marketing and the new book, Disruptive Transcendence.
Absolutely.
And it works, and it's instantaneous. It's as quick as you can talk,
yes,
as quick as you generate the lead.
Yep.
The cost basically is nothing, but at the same time, describe maybe the connectivity, the emotional connectivity, the professional connectivity, and the relationship that seems to be engendered or fused so quickly, because these people are not treating you in that amount of time frame the way that other prospects would have treated you in the past.
They're not. And, I'm kind of relating with them exactly as they are going to be relating with their customers. There's an instantaneous bond and a trust that's going on there. They understand, first of all, when we get in front of a camera, that they know what the questions are going to be, and all I want them to do is have a conversation. And when we talk about the press release, they're also talking about it's their words. It's not my words making it up. It's their words. So they own 100% of everything that we're doing completely free of charge. There's no charge whatsoever for this. They get it. And as they're going through that, they're still trying to think, well, what's the catch? Where are you really going to hook me at the end?
It's always in the back of their mind.
It always is. And I'm building credibility 2 ways. I'm building instant credibility, showing them ways that they can get to their audience very, very quickly in video and in print. And then I build the second credibility is when I send it to them, I send them their press release, and I say, if you don't ever want to talk to me again, I got you. It's perfectly okay. But we got you started.
It's such a hard thing psychologically because you start to topple that massive wall of distrust that's in every buddy's organization.
It's terrible.
And you look at it and you realize you're going to spend the money somewhere generating a lead. You're already doing it, whether it's time, whether it's hard cash. You're already creating the expenditure, and it's massive. But here, the time is instantaneous. The expenditures are almost nominal.
Right.
And in the end, the trust that's engendered so quick is fantastic. And the ability, because of the way that the interview is set up, it's technically asking questions about their organization, which leads to information that is based on what you train on.
Exactly.
And so the questions that you're asking are also exposing some of the holes in their sales processes and marketing processes, their visions, their objectives, where they want to go, what they're struggling with, what the competitive marketplace is like for them, which leads to a natural, quote-unquote, off-camera conversation about what you do. So it naturally leads into the type of meeting that you've been trying to push towards prior.
Well, the really interesting part about this too is you talked a little while ago about the way traditional sales is really kind of history. Owners have traditionally had an awful lot of difficulty in trying to get the message through their sales organization to their customer base. Right. There's always that middle person there that's changing it just so. But when you get the owner on video and when you get them in a press release, they're saying exactly what they want the end user to know. They're
Right.
saying exactly the message that they want to have sent out, and it's not filtered by anyone.
Right.
And they get very, very excited about that.
Yeah, and the thing I like also is one of the things that happens in CEO Growth Team when I started this organization is I've always said I want the power to grow the organization back in the hands of the CEO where it rightfully belongs. We've kind of pushed that out through the management organizations that have pushed the concept of empowering lower staff members, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it seems that the direction and the strategy that should be in the hands of the CEO has now disappeared and been distributed down to people that don't have the ability to actually pull it off. And so now the number one sales guy who can speak for the organization is now speaking for the organization, which is a tremendous tool for their salespeople or whatever other collateral that they have. So it does make it makes a huge difference. And one final thing I was going to ask you, you went in initially almost like a vendor to those types of trade shows. You would normally secure a booth, pay for it, and be there with everybody else trying to sell to these office supply companies. But this approach changed something there, didn't it?
It changed a lot. I had credibility within the office supply industry because I've been in it for so many years, which is why I got a booth.
Right.
But all of a sudden, the credibility went through the roof because I wasn't trying to sell me. All I was doing is focusing on you. I want to know about your organization, and I want to help you get free press, video, and on a press release. And then they were able to walk away. I can't tell you how many callbacks I got that said that was a phenomenal experience. And yeah, I definitely want to talk some more.
Changes the game because instead of you chasing the marketplace, you flip the script on them and now they're all chasing you.
Exactly.
And normally, and it's interesting because the association that's founding the trade show, you normally buy that booth, but they actually...
I didn't pay for it.
They gave you a comp booth.
Yeah.
So it didn't cost him a thing
to
show up there.
And the really cool part about this is not only did we get the CEOs on video, but we were able to get testimonials for the Tri-Mega organization, which we then put into a very nice video package. We sent it off to the Tri-Mega organization. They were stunned by the things that these 11 dealers had to say about them. So not only was I able to raise my credibility, I was able to get CEOs to talk about their company and feel passionate about it, but also talk about their organization. And it worked out beautifully.
Yeah, and it's great collateral for them.
Yeah.
And now, in them promoting their trade shows in advance, this is going to be something that is kind of an anchor point for them going forward, and one of the major benefits of getting more people to come to those events of theirs. And you're kind of now completely in the woodwork. You're not just a known individual in that industry. You are part of the structure.
Yeah, I really am part of that DNA.
You're not looking in from the outside, you're technically part of the DNA of the structure, and that's critical, guys, and happened all in a matter of what?
3.5 hours. That was the investment. It was 3.5 hours on my part. I know. It was amazing.
Great, Jeff. Thanks for being on the show. Appreciate you, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the Money Fest CEO Growth Team. Thanks for listening in.
Good.